Has anyone ever told you how grip placement affects the body mechanics in the golf swing, as well as your release points? And if you aren't applying the correct grip for your body's natural ability, you may be robbing yourself, yes, robbing yourself, of your best golf in years. If you answered yes, before you leave, I want to encourage you to support your local golf coach of your community, as they can do wonders for you. If you answered no to my question, by the end of the video, you may have a better understanding of why you may not be at your best ability by ignoring your golf grip. Today we're going to take a look at Dustin Johnson and Rickie Fowler and compare them side by side, as they do have two opposing grips, and we're going to see how it affects their mechanics. Happy holidays, by the way. If you do like this at any point in time, hit that like, share, subscribe. Really helps us grow. For more information on the golf swing, oh yeah, go support your local pro. Let's get going. So before we get to the nitty-gritty of how the grip placement affects your body mechanics, you need to figure out with you, do you have enough rotation to make a strong grip work? The stronger the grip becomes, the more body is required to turn and tilt. The weaker the grip is, the less it is required, and the more the hands are involved to help square that club face. And this all depends on your setup based on your spine axis at the start of your swing. So for my older golfers that do not have a lot of rotation, you might consider a weaker grip. For my young, strong golfers out there, strong grips are good because they favor body rotation, tilting, and remaining in your posture to get this accomplished. Now keep in mind, there is no be-all end-all in the golf swing. I don't care what anybody says. It is so individual, and there's so many things at play with you, with me, with Joe next door, that you cannot teach the same mechanics to everybody. And this is why I encourage you to go take a lesson with the local pro, because they can take care of 99.9% of you, and you need to support them. They need your help out there. So let's start from the beginning and let's talk about the grip placement. We can see on the left side of the screen we have Rickie Fowler, and what you are looking at is where the V's are pointing. So his right V is pointed to the center, and it's hard to tell where that left V is, but you can see the top of the thumb on the left side, and it is also pointing fairly neutral. So I wouldn't say this is a weak grip. I would say it's more of a neutral grip, where if you take a look at DJ, we see both his lines where his fingers meet the thumb are pointing to the right shoulder. What we are trying to look for is how they are set up in relation to that tilt. So we look at the shoulder tilt, we look at the center of that shoulder tilt, and we can see that Rickie Fowler is pretty neutral setup. So we have a neutral grip and a neutral setup. Where we have Dustin Johnson, we have the same tilting. The chest is still connected to the hands, but if you take a look, his club shaft does start with a forward press. And yes, I know this is just in his backswing because I had to sync these up, but trust me, it is definitely a forward press. Now what happens here is he creates a new angle in this area that he now has to deliver correctly. He cannot rotate his wrists to close that gap. He has to do some manipulation with his spine angle to keep that gap there while he delays his wrist, and hence he needs a strong grip. Now it's hard to tell which one came first, the grip or the swing, but they probably joined together, which is why it's important for you to understand this before you even dilly-dally around on YouTube looking for the answers, because it's probably not there. So we can see a little difference here. We see the spine angle is a little bit more upright with DJ, and there is Rickie Fowler's and there is DJ's. Now remember how we started with that forward press, so now we're going to have to figure out, how do I get my body more involved to help limit that hand rotation at impact? Now remember, if you watched my video yesterday, we talked about angle retention. So the angle retention is basically where this angle of your wrist is set at the top, and this differs for everybody. But if you take a look at the relation to the turn, we draw this in green. That is the shoulder turn, and we see the club does not get perpendicular to that shoulder turn. So that is how you know where the club shaft should be at the top of the swing. Now obviously grip placement can affect this too, but it's mostly rotation and keeping connection between your hands and the center of you as you turn. So if you find yourself with the club head past parallel and you have less turn, you have some issues now to deal with on that downswing, because you have disconnected from your power source and you have to now reconnect while you're turning, while you're tilting, and that becomes a release issue. So if your grip isn't correctly aligned for that release, your path and face relationship is all over the map. Now, if we take a look as they start to drive down into it, we see both golfers get their weight distribution right away. They're both carrying a pretty good amount of that angle retention. But what we notice is Ricky on the left side will start to release that angle retention sooner because he has a weaker grip and he's relying more on the rotation of the forearms and the release of the hands to get that club back out in front of his chest. Now, what we can see that is different as well is look at the amount of shoulder tilt. Now, remember what I said at the beginning of the video, that those with weaker grips tend to have less shoulder tilt and turn. The one on the right side has a stronger grip, and we can start to see that tilting is already increasing versus Ricky. He's about a level shoulder tilt. But as we get it down into impact, they both in the same positions with their hands, but one has hit the golf ball, one has not hit the golf ball. Look at the amount of tilt, and we're going to draw this one now in yellow, and we can see that there has been a slight increase of tilt for Ricky. But if you take a look at Dustin, look at how much more tilt. Now, what this does is it angles his hands to be more out in front as he strikes it. So we can imagine that when he strikes it, his hands will be right about here. Versus Ricky, if you look at his spine angle, we see that when he struck it, his hands met the center of that spine angle. So if we keep going forward, let's take a look at when Dustin strikes the golf ball. Right there as he strikes it, look where his hands met. They're matching that tilt. So for him to make that strong grip work, he has to delay the release by getting the tilt more involved and staying down and rotating his lower body. So we see a lot more rotation with the lower body on Dustin Johnson than we do with Ricky Fowler. So if you have a tough time rotating, if you have a tough time staying in your posture, you probably need a weaker grip to help you. If you don't have a tough time rotating and you are very athletic and can stay in your posture, strengthen that grip up and take the hands and arms out of it. Now, why is that important? If you watched the video from yesterday, you learned about angle retention. And when you release that angle, your hand speed slows down. So think about this. You would like your hand speed to increase before you hit the golf ball. If you have a weaker grip and your ball placement's more in the center, you have to enact that release a little sooner. So by doing that, you are slowing down your hand speed right before you hit the golf ball to transfer that energy. Here, we're delaying our release so our hand speed can keep up with the tilt and turn. You can see evidence of this as we get past impact. Look at the one on the left side. This is Ricky Fowler with a weaker grip. He has the traditional right hand over left. And we see on the right side, look at Dustin Johnson. He is still holding that club face open because he is closing it with the rotation and the tilting. And look at the accentuated tilt that we are seeing with Dustin Johnson. And if we go even further, we can now just see the club head is just getting over with Dustin Johnson. But look at how much further he is in his follow through. He has to eventually release it or else he's going to hurt himself. But what we can tell here is look at the amount of crossing with Ricky Fowler versus almost no crossing with Dustin Johnson, which means that he's able to hit the ball much further because his hand speed doesn't slow down to release the club. And he is also enacting bigger parts of his body, more shoulder tilt, more shoulder turn, more hip turn, more drive to clear the room to get your shoulders to his tilt under. So everything is promoting body. So again, if you have issues with distance, but you don't have issues with rotation, strengthen that thing up and just turn and tilt. But if you are having issues with rotation and you have a strong grip, hey, weaken that grip out, get your hands and arms involved. There's no wrong way or right way. It's whatever way you can get that swing to repeat itself so it can give you more consistent result and your misses become less like this. We don't need balls in the pool or in the tennis courts. We need them somewhere down the fairway or even the rough. We'll take it. And lastly, in this frame, we take a look at where the club is in relation to them. It's about the same. It is almost parallel with the ground with each one. Let's take a quick shoulder tilt number and we can see an estimation of what the shoulder tilts are. We have 48 versus 68. So we have 20 more degrees of tilt on the right side. So just proof that tilt and turn needs a strong grip. And if you can't do this, go to weaker grip. Hope that helps you guys. I'll see you next time. Happy holidays, fairways and greens.